Hey Spider Nerds, welcome to the SpiderNerd.com podcast. I am your host and webmaster, Jonathan Weber, and joining me today for the panel, we have Mr. James Markin.
Hey guys.
What's up with you, James? What you been up to this week?
Just a pretty drama-filled, kind of not really crappy week. I told some of the reasons to the guys already, and other things I don't really want to discuss on the podcast because, you know, that's kind of people I don't want them to think I'm just crying over stuff. Even though I'm not crying, it's just, you know, upset because it was a really drama-filled week for me.
When James says he's not crying, I think of the Power Rangers episode. Do you see any tears?
Oh, God. Now people are going to think I'm ripping off Dan Toku's Rant podcast. Thank you, guys.
All right. And also today for the panel, we have Mr. Thomas Patterson. Welcome back, Thomas.
Yo, everybody. How's it going?
It's going pretty well, Thomas. What you been up to this past 3 weeks?
Well, I had the robotics tournament in Omaha, which was all right. The most polluted area, impoverished, pretty much anything that you could imagine. But I went to go see Captain America, the Winter Soldier twice in the past 2 weeks, so that was pretty good. And
Damn good movie.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
actually,
And
I saw it the other day. It's pretty good.
you just saw it? You didn't go to see it opening weekend?
Well, I was kind of busy with stuff. I have a life, you know.
I had a life. I was at the robotics tournament, and so I went at 8 o'clock to the IMAX showing right after it ended.
Yeah, see, here's
Friday.
the thing, Thomas. James and I have, like, these things called girlfriends. Not really. Not me.
Well, I know he had a girlfriend, but why not take her out on a date for it or whatever?
No, it's just...
James had to see another movie.
Oh,
James
really?
had
What'd you
better
go see?
things to do.
What'd you go see?
We didn't end up going to a movie because she wanted to go see another movie. I wanted to see Captain America, so we decided just to go out to dinner instead.
Oh.
There you go.
And we watched the movie at home. We ended up watching Frozen.
Oh, really? I heard that was... No. Actually, it was a pretty solid film.
Oh, I'm not denying that it was a solid film. It's just whenever I think of Frozen, my high school concert band just played a medley of songs from Frozen for our spring concert. I just got to say this because I know my sister didn't like this when I saw the movie with my sister, and my girlfriend didn't like it too. The guy's Santa Claus. That Christopher, he's Santa. Everything about him screams Santa Claus. But they told me no, he's not. He's completely different.
Christoph?
Yeah, Christoph. He's Santa. He has to be.
Because he has a reindeer?
He has a reindeer. His name is Kristoff, like Kris Kringle. He's snow. He's friends with snowmen. He has like little troll elf-like things. He ran into a pole. He had a sled for deliveries.
All right. So getting off of the Frozen topic.
Yeah, this ain't a Frozen podcast.
Yeah, this isn't a movie podcast. Shall we tackle news now, gentlemen?
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah.
All right, and so our first news story this week, we actually got a fairly decent amount of news this week. You want to start with the two clips, or shall we start with what Andrew Garfield decided to open his mouth about?
Let's start with Andrew Garfield. Are we talking about his Amazing Spider-Man, or the Spider-Man is Jewish?
Let's talk Spider-Man's religion, shall we?
All right.
All right.
I thought we weren't going to offend anybody no more, and I think this topic might start offending people.
No. Well, I mean, unless we say something really stupid. Which
Thomas!
Ouch! Oh, okay, John.
Guys,
that's it.
Guys,
I'm
true
walking
story.
out. I'm not doing this podcast no more.
Thomas,
Bye.
Thomas, true story. I was on AGR. We had a Christmas special, and we had like a game we played, and Effie won it, and he's Jewish. And Effie, on our show, Who's Jewish, made a joke about how the Jewish guy won the Christmas Power Ranger game on the podcast. And somebody got offended by that because the Jewish person brought up that he was Jewish on a Christmas special.
Let's just go around for a poll right now. Anyone here Jewish? Not me.
No.
Not me.
Well, just so you know, the Spider Nerd podcast does not hold anything against Jewish people.
Oh, absolutely not.
We fully support Jewish rights and everything that, you know, Jews should have equal rights, and the Holocaust is a crime against humanity.
Well, yeah, but I don't think that... Well, I don't really know what kind of, like, oppression they're going through in the United States, but I didn't think it was very high to begin with.
Well, still. But it's
like if somebody made fun of you, Thomas, for being white or something.
Well, that does happen a lot.
I think it's fair to say we all support Jewish people.
It doesn't happen a lot no more. We live in a society now where there's not really too much racial things, but when there is, it's pretty bad.
It happens all the time.
It's where I live, damn it.
I think it's fair to say we all support Jewish people.
Yes. Okay, all right. Back on topic.
All right, good. Andrew Garfield recently did an interview in which he states that he believes Spider-Man to be Jewish. Here is the quote. Spider-Man is neurotic. Peter Parker is not a simple dude. He can't just switch off. He never feels like he's doing enough. Wow, he really could have combined these sentences. And Peter suffers from self-doubt. He ums and ahs about his future because he's neurotic. He's Jewish. It's a defining feature. I hope Jewish people won't mind the cliche because my father's Jewish. I have that in me for sure. He's an overthinker. It would be much easier if he was a life-saving robot. Now, I did my research here. I looked up Andrew Garfield's religion. He is Jewish. He himself is Jewish. So before anyone says that that he's trying to offend Jewish people, he himself is Jewish.
Oh no, I don't think this quote was meant to offend Jewish people. However, I think he's kind of generalizing people's personalities to a religion, which I don't think is entirely accurate, but at the same time, I don't think it's offensive.
Personally, I mean, this is the second kind of big thing Garfield has said after the whole, Mary Jane should be a guy thing back last summer.
Yep.
Am I the only one here who thinks, shut up, Garfield? I mean...
Well, he does say some pretty well thought out stuff about Spider-Man. I mean, obviously he's a pretty big fan of the character, and I mean, he's said a lot of really thoughtful things and stuff, so I wouldn't say just shut up, but I would say lay off the controversial topics like this.
Yeah, because we don't need another big Spider-Man should be gay controversy because let's face it.
Yeah, my point is like I don't really mind, if that's the way he interprets the character is that Spider-Man's Jewish. That's how he interprets the character when he's doing the role. Because think about it, Stan Lee was Jewish, Bob Kane who rented Batman was Jewish, Jack Kirby's Jewish, the inventors of Superman were Jewish, so a lot of people who made comic books were Jewish. Yeah. So, that's a part of comic book history, so if he sees Peter Parker as Jewish, I have no problems with it.
Well, see, they actually did confirm what Peter Parker's religion was.
Well, that's what I mean, those characters were created by people who are Jewish, but, you see issues where...
But he's not Jewish.
And Happy Merry Christmas and Happy New Year and stuff like that. You see references to these characters being Christian.
Well, see, here's my point to Thomas is, was Andrew Garfield just talking about the movie version, his Peter Parker, or is he talking about Spider-Man as a whole? I took it as he's just talking about his Peter Parker.
I took it as he's talking about Spider-Man as a whole. Just the fact that he didn't really specify that this Spider-Man is neurotic, just that Spider-Man as a whole is neurotic, and that Peter as a whole suffers from self-doubt, and that's that character and everything. And I felt like he was basically making that comment, which is fine. I don't care how he interprets the character, as James said. I totally agree, but I think they even specified at a later date that he was what was it?
Protestant.
He was Protestant, yeah.
Yeah, Spider-Man in the comics, I think it was proven somewhere he is a Protestant.
Yeah, I think it was one of the issues where he went into the future, where he saw the future and he's getting gunned down by the police.
Oh my gosh, what story is that?
500.
The JMS wrote it.
It's 500. Issue 500.
Oh yeah.
Man, this is what I really need to get back into the back issues to read some of this stuff. I'm 2 issues away from I'm 2 issues away from 2000, so I'm pretty close. The year 2000. But yeah, does anyone really have a problem with Spider-Man possibly being Jewish? I mean,
no.
I don't have a problem with this at all. I just think shut up, Garfield, because just as much as I respect Andrew Garfield, he's just saying some really controversial things. It's like it's almost like he's trying to stir up controversy, and it's just I'm not a fan of it at all.
I don't think he's deliberately trying to. I think he just put his foot in his mouth this time. See, I don't think that it's a problem in terms of offending them. I think it's just kind of a generalization saying that all Jewish people are self-doubting, really good people. And I mean, like, I'm not trying to say Jewish people are horrible, but I bet there are some, bad people, as with all the other churches out there. There probably are some bad people, and I think this is a little bit of a generalization.
I mean, it's a hard topic because it is such a controversial one. I mean, no matter what we say, we're gonna end up offending somebody. It's just the nature of the beast here. So we are kind of dancing around the topic a bit, but I mean, I don't really have a problem with this. It is a generalization. I think Thomas is making a very good point with that. It's a kind of a naive generalization, I think, and I'm not sure it really should have been said. I don't have a problem with Spider-Man being Jewish. I'm just thinking, shut up, Andrew Garfield, please.
Well, I mean, like, I was watching Friends the other night, and one of the two of the main characters, Monica and Ross, on that show. I don't mean to make this a Friends, whatever, but they're Jewish, and that doesn't impact my viewing of the characters at all. They're still who they are. It doesn't matter. And so Spider-Man being Jewish wouldn't matter at all to me either. It's just I'm not a huge fan of the generalizations he's putting out. I don't think it's offensive. I just don't think that it really needed to be said.
It's not offensive. It just, like I was saying, it doesn't need to be said. It's just, why does Garfield feel the need to open his mouth about this? It's just weird.
I don't think it really has that much relevance. It almost seems like he was trying to turn it around into that. From what I'm gathering from the quote there. I thought it was like a question basically, hey, what is your character all about? And he starts out pretty good, and then he's Jewish. And it's a defining feature, and I get that it might have been like sort of like a joke, but I think he went a little far with it.
Yeah, I respect Andrew Garfield so much. I love the guy. He's absolutely fantastic, but he really needs to learn when to filter what he says.
Yeah, I think he sometimes. I think he said he's Jewish, and then he might have gone through like this little process in his head. He's like, "Oh God, did I just say that? Now I need to explain myself," and he just kept digging that hole for himself.
It's kind of like you're digging yourself further and further into a hole, and ultimately you're just screwed.
Exactly.
I'm shocked.
I think we all have those moments, and it does enhance my connection with the actor because obviously we all have some times where we put our foots in our mouth and stuff, and I've done a few times on the podcast. But I just really would rather that this wasn't such a big deal. At the same time, I really wish it wasn't. You didn't say it.
All right, James, you want to say something? Go ahead.
I'm shocked that he didn't start when you said he was digging himself in the hole. I'm shocked he bring up, well, Peter lives in Queens, and Queens has a high Jewish population, and
that is that an actual real statistic?
I believe so, because I think it does have a huge Jewish neighborhood in New York.
I didn't know that, actually.
That could be an explanation. My problem is this quote didn't need to be here at all.
Yeah, it kind of.
I'm surprised that because he kept on digging himself a hole. I'm surprised he wasn't even bringing up those little facts about Peter Parker. Like, well, he lives in Queens, and Queens has a high Jewish population, and
yeah, I think it just doesn't rub me the right way. I'm not super bothered by it. I just really wish he kind of hadn't said that, but I've said that multiple times. So,
all right. Final thoughts on Andrew Garfield saying Spider-Man is Jewish?
I think I've summarized my thoughts pretty well. It's just, I don't think he really needed to say it. It's not offensive. I just don't like the generalization that's there.
All right.
It's pretty much the same thing I felt when he said the whole "why can't Peter Parker be gay?" My point of view is if they, almost like Thomas said a few weeks ago on a podcast, if they did a version of him that was gay or Jewish or both or whatever, I would be perfectly okay with it. No problems. That's a different interpretation of the character. But what I'm saying is, when you go back and you try to retcon stuff that already happened, where he's dating women, or in this case, where you got comics where it shows him celebrating Christmas at Aunt May with a tree, then it's like, okay, well, then that Peter Parker's not that, and I feel like you are trying to, change your personal views onto the character, which is wrong depending on what your views are. And when I'll stop here because I can't even think of how to finish that statement.
All right.
And you know what I mean. You know what I mean. Where I was getting at, like, yeah. It's like a new version, but if you're going back with the old stuff and saying no, he was that really, then I have a problem with it.
I don't have a problem with this. I didn't feel this statement needed to be made. I feel this is just Garfield kind of running his mouth, and I don't really feel that he really should have been. So, all right, that's going to do it for that news topic. Our next news topic also concerns Andrew Garfield. Garfield recently talked about the Amazing Spider-Man movies, number 1 and number 2. Here's the quote that Andrew Garfield said about the first movie and why it's apparently going to not be as good as the second. I wasn't satisfied with the first movie, but I think there is a cohesiveness on this film that we didn't quite have on the first. We were finding our feet a little bit on the first one. I'm really excited about this one, and I think it's going to be great. Yeah. So here's Garfield basically saying that he wasn't satisfied with the first movie. Panel, discuss.
Well, I think this seems to be a pretty common thing, I think, with most actors, is that when they're promoting their film, they start to talk a little bit more about what they would have liked to have done better going into this one. However, this is the first time I've seen Andrew Garfield just come right out and say that he wasn't entirely satisfied with the first one. Before, he was talking about how he's glad that they're on the second one. They don't have to deal with the origin story and they can go their own way now. This seems to... It kind of rubs me a little bit the wrong way whenever actors try to insult their previous work, like when Shia LaBeouf did that with... when he was promoting Transformers Dark of the Moon. He did that with the second Transformers, which was, I guess, most people didn't like it. But he kind of fell on the side where he didn't like it as well, and he was trying to basically connect better with the people he was trying to persuade to go see this one. And I think that's what Andrew Garfield's doing here. And I don't really like that, because you made the product, and I think that you should kind of stand by that.
Here's my problem with this. I'm just not... To me... I really am not sure how to feel about this. I get where Thomas is coming from, but I also feel like, was he saying that he hates the first movie? Was he saying, was it a bad production? What is the truth behind this statement? That's what I'm kind of wondering is, what does he mean by he wasn't satisfied with it?
There's two ways you can take that, I think. Like, you hear this all the time with actors, that if it's the first time they do something, whether it be a TV show like the first season of the show or a movie franchise, where they won't be personally happy with how they acted in it, like they weren't satisfied as themselves portraying that character in the first movie as where they were, say, in the second one or the third one or the fourth one or whatever. And another way you could take it is kind of a business standpoint of that a lot of companies do this, where like they say the new season or the new game or the new movie is bigger and badder and it's better than the original. And that could be the thing he's doing here, where he's just promoting the new thing by saying, yeah, I wasn't really satisfied with the first one because this one's so much better, and it blows it out the water, where he's just doing it to promote the new thing.
But here's my argument against that. Why would you need to tear down your first one in order to build up excitement for your second one? It's basically saying, you could say, okay, the first one, you really liked it, you're going to like this one even more.
That's why I most just took it from an acting standpoint, that him personally wasn't satisfied with himself, how he played the character, and he thinks that he did it better with this movie. I didn't take it as the whole first movie sucked or anything like that.
Well, he says that there's a cohesiveness that is better on this one. That's not really his job as an actor to make things cohesive. That's the script. I think he's talking about the movie as a whole. And he's saying that this movie as a whole is better than the last one, and he wasn't entirely satisfied with the last one. It doesn't really strike me as an acting thing where, I wasn't able to delve into Peter as much as I'd like to. No, this is a movie thing.
Yeah, that was a problem I had with this quote. It was just like, to me, this felt like he was kind of hating on the first movie a bit. And, you know, I love the first movie. That's no secret. But, you know, it's just, I don't like seeing actors kind of, like Thomas said, I'm not a fan of seeing actors hate on their previous work. I mean, yeah, I do believe they should stand by what they did. They could say, okay, I've done better stuff now, but, you know, I still stand by the product that we made, and it was a good, solid product. I'm just not a fan of this quote. And I'm reviewing this like I'm reviewing a book, so it's, you know, take that. But, you know, I didn't feel that this quote was, I thought it was kind of a bash a little bit. I mean,
yeah,
bashing
totally
is a strong word to use, which is why I've been kind of dancing around using it, because bashing is a strong word, and maybe it's a little bit too hard.
I don't really feel like this is like bashing it. That would be like saying the last movie was absolutely awful. I hated it. This one is so much better. I don't think it's bashing it. I think it's criticizing it more than it probably needs to be.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's just, I don't feel Andrew Garfield really should. I mean, like the previous quote, I didn't feel this needed to be said. I mean, it's a hard barometer for me because
it's not like he said the first movie was a piece of crap and I hate it and the acting sucked and the writing sucked.
I know.
Sucked, the director sucked. That I would have.
It almost seems like you should leave like the criticism of your movie to the critics, and that it's not your job as the actor to criticize the previous work that you are contractually obligated to perform in and contractually obligated to perform off of for this film.
It just, to me, it doesn't make much sense. I mean, why would you tear down something else like your previous work in order to build up excitement for your new work? Personally, it's like, okay, if something else has a previous bad track record, why would I have any faith in what's coming next? So, to me, that seems kind of like an oxymoron. Like, I've never understood why people do that. And to be quite honest with you, I'm not understanding this. It's like I said, it's a hard barometer for me to kind of explain, and I have to articulate this right, or else this is going to be a complete waste of time. But really, I just don't like the idea that Andrew Garfield. I mean, I get it. This is his opinion. If he wasn't satisfied with the first movie, that's on him. But I kind of feel that he should keep that to himself.
Yeah, I feel like that's more of a personal opinion, and it's not his job to criticize it. That's what we have all the critics and Rotten Tomatoes and all that stuff for. They're the ones who are supposed to, and they're paid to like point out flaws. I don't think it is the people that made its job to point out the flaws. And I mean, like, I'm perfectly okay with saying that you didn't delve into the character as much as you did, and you got the opportunity to further that storyline that you started in the first one, because that makes sense. It's an evolution of what you did before, and you're not criticizing it. You're just saying that you didn't get the depth that you wanted to, and now you get to explore that a little bit more. I feel like that would have sat better with me than this quote does.
Yeah, I feel like had Garfield, I think a lot of it was the wording that he used. Yeah. Had he probably worded it different, I probably wouldn't be as I hesitate to say up in arms about it, but had he worded it different, it probably wouldn't be emanating so much with me. I think that had he worded it different, it probably would have come off in a better way. I think this was poor choice of vocabulary here, and ultimately, I'm not a big fan of this quote. So, final thoughts, anybody?
Not really.
The microphone has some few final thoughts.
Well, for me, this quote, it was much like the last one where it didn't really need to be said. Honestly, all these interviews, obviously, actors are going to say stuff that they probably shouldn't say. But the thing is, I'm still probably going to enjoy the movie all the same.
Oh yeah, I'm totally going to enjoy this movie.
It's not like he's doing anything like horribly wrong or anything. It's just that this quote didn't really sit well with me, and trying to like go back and like criticize your previous work. I don't really think that's his job, and that he shouldn't have done that. And that's not really something that I ethically agree with, especially since you're in the sequel to that you should have just like worded it like, I want to explore a little bit more, and now that we're finished with the origin story, we can move on and explore a little bit more. And that would have worded it much better, and I would have felt much better about it. But all the same, I don't really think it's going to affect at all how much I enjoy the second film and how much I enjoy the first film either. So,
all right, and so with that, we'll move off of the Andrew Garfield news and on to a little bit more movie news. This one actually concerns the Venom spinoff movie. We have a possible appearance by Carnage coming up in the Venom spinoff movie. Avi Arad and Matt Tolmach recently did an interview where they discussed the Venom spinoff film. In the interview, Tolmach was quoted as to saying, "The idea of Venom and Carnage, we're taking it into consideration. Watch out for this Venom movie. We're crazy excited." Is this hinting at a Carnage appearance?
I would definitely say so. With Carnage, I think the thing is, you don't really have that many villains that Venom, that many characters that Venom would fight. Obviously you got Spider-Man, but if you're going to have the Venom spin-off film stand by itself without Spider-Man in it, you could do much, much worse than Carnage. And Carnage, he has a lot more connection to Venom than any other villain that he could fight. And on top of that, Carnage is even worse than Venom is, which will help provide the perspective for the film that Venom is actually not that bad a guy. Whereas Carnage, who just, is like, I like to compare him sort of to the Joker of the Spider-Man universe, except he has a symbiote suit that makes him even more powerful. And that's kind of how I view Cletus Cassidy and the Carnage thing, and that would be a good direction, I think, in order to like show some perspective on how bad the levels of bad that each of these villains go to.
I really like what you just said there, Thomas, because it does kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Shit. But it does really bring to light how Venom can be an anti-hero and Carnage is really just pure evil. I do like that. I think a Venom versus Carnage movie, they've been talking about doing this ever since Spider-Man 3 when they first announced that they were going to try to do a Venom spinoff film. So, ultimately, this doesn't surprise me at all. I think a Venom versus Carnage movie could be very cool. I think it'd be very interesting to see how they would do it. But I am hesitant because, how can you do a Venom movie without Spider-Man? It really... That kind of doesn't sit well with me.
Well, I think you can do a Venom spin-off film all right if you have Venom at least fight Spider-Man first, which I'm kind of concerned he won't, and then he's going to go out there. But I'm also thinking that they might choose to go Agent Venom first.
But then how would they do Carnage? Because Agent Venom and Eddie Brock Venom are two completely different people.
Oh, I know. I'm just saying that there's obviously certain creative liberties that this series has taken, and you could introduce Carnage in some other way, shape, or form have Agent Venom go up against him. I'm just saying that I don't know which direction they're going with Venom. People even brought up that, you have Flash Thompson and Avi Arad, obviously take everything he says with a grain of salt because he considered this Amazing Spider-Man reboot part of the previous continuity. But at the same time, he said that we're considering all options, and that would be interesting. And he is and I noticed that these producers are very, very defensive, or they kind of avoid the question whenever they're asked about these spin-off films. And one more thing I'd like to say about the spin-off films is that people have been saying that the comic book movie market is going to get oversaturated at some point, and I'm worried that these spin-off films featured on the villains are going to be the ones to do it.
And Thomas, I don't mean to burst your bubble, but the quote was from Matt Tolmach, not Avi Arad.
Well, I know, but it's also Avi Arad. And Matt Tolmach is also one of the producers that's also, talking about this movie. And I did say producers kind of dodge those questions as well.
Okay. But, James, thoughts on Carnage being in the Venom movie?
Well, he's the villain you're going to have to do. It's like doing a Batman movie. If you were going to do a series from scratch, Joker's got to be the first villain and stuff like that. Carnage is that villain to Venom because where Venom was, he used the symbiote and he was nuts. I mean, Venom to save a cat in a burning building would run right through an orphanage, killing all the kids. I mean, that's how Venom thinks. That's how he sees protecting innocence. But he sees that he's doing good in the world. He sees that he's a hero. He just does bad things to make good. Like the road of good intentions are paved with hell, or whatever the saying is. And Carnage is the complete opposite. Carnage is, Carnage. He's all anarchy. He's all, I'm using these just to kill people and to show people that anarchy rules. Carnage is the only thing that matters, and murder is fun. So, yeah, it's kind of similar to what Thomas said, about how you get to see the layers of evil, how Venom's evil, but he's not as evil and as bad as Carnage.
And then it also lets you root for Venom in the film.
My only problem comes back to the whole, I just don't see a Venom similar like the Sinister Six without Peter. Because to me, that's one of the big parts is the black suit is you see it on Peter first.
Yeah.
And Venom's whole goal, going way back to the 80s, back to Amazing 299, 300, 316, 330, whatever, all of those issues, his only goal was to destroy Spider-Man. Like, at the end of issue 347, I think it was, when he thinks he's destroyed Spider-Man, he decides to live on that deserted island in peace. He's not going to hurt anyone anymore. His sole goal is to destroy Spider-Man. Once that's done, he has no other goals. So I agree with James that, how can you really do a Venom movie without Peter Parker? If you're going to do it in classic Venom style. I'm not talking about Agent Venom here. Agent Venom is a completely different concept.
Well, I know, and if they were going to go with that, we don't know. From what I've been hearing, it's Eddie Brock for sure. I definitely don't think they're going Agent Venom. I was thinking that it'd be a little bit of an interesting way to go because that, I think, stands alone better than an Eddie Brock Venom movie because he kind of needs Spider-Man for an Eddie Brock Venom movie. More than you need one for Agent Venom. So I do think that's going to be an issue. But Andrew Garfield was quoting on saying that with the Sinister Six, it was basically going to be like the reverse Avengers where Spider-Man's kind of in that film, he's like on the sideline though, is what he said in one of the MTV interviews.
Yeah, I did read a quote somewhere that said Spider-Man would be in both the Venom and Sinister Six movie. I don't remember where I read it, but I read it somewhere. But of course, take that with a grain of salt because I can't provide a source for that.
The way I would do it then is that I would have Amazing Spider-Man 3 be Peter in the black suit, and then it ends with him somehow getting rid of it. I don't know how they're going to do it. They're going to do the church scene that's in the comics, but that was already done in 3. So if they would redo that, or they do a different way of how he loses the symbiote. And
like an Ultimate Spider-Man where he just gets electrocuted and it comes off.
Or something like that. And it ends up on Brock, and that sets up Venom. And the first scenes in Venom is him versus Peter. Getting revenge on Peter and everything, and maybe he thinks that he kills Spider-Man, almost like the comics. He thinks Spider-Man's dead, but Peter actually got away. And then the rest of the movie is him dealing with Carnage, where in the end, Spider-Man swings in to help him take down Carnage.
Yeah. Well, what I was thinking is that we've noticed that this whole franchise has been taking place around Peter Parker's parents and Peter Parker, obviously. So I was thinking that what they might decide to do is have the Amazing Spider-Man 3 kind of be Peter's exposure to the symbiote because his father made the suit, kind of like in the Ultimate Comics, and that it's with Oscorp. And then he gets the suit, and then he realizes it's bad for him. And he's actually working with Eddie Brock on that, and then Eddie Brock becomes Venom in the Venom spinoff film.
We've seen Venom storage in the trailer for The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
And I heard some spoilers from people, not too much, but they said that there's a name drop cameo of symbiotes. Or they didn't go into details of what it was, but a friend of mine did tell me that they do say symbiotes at one point in the movie.
Interesting. But I guess final thoughts on Carnage in the Venom movie.
Well, I mean, if you're going to do a Venom movie, I guess that this would probably be the best way to go about having a villain. I am just really, really worried about Sony just going overboard with these spin-off films. It just seems to me that the only reason that they're doing it is not because of the creative opportunities that it opens up, because obviously everybody does it in some small part for the money, but it feels like this is entirely for it. There's really no real reason to do it except that they can make money off of it.
Dude,
And
that's what this whole reboot is centered around.
Well, I know, but there's actually creative opportunities that come with making the reboot, that you can have Spider-Man fight all new villains that they didn't have before, or you could have Oscorp be the center villain. I mean, there's extra creative opportunities that come out of that, whereas I don't think this one is particularly trying to open up creative opportunities as much as just make money.
All right, so moving off of the spin-off movie topic, we got two, I guess, video trailer clip things from The Amazing Spider-Man 2. First up, we got an epic new TV spot released by Sony Pictures, and I have to say I love this TV spot. Easily my favorite TV spot we've seen so far. Basic description of it, it starts with Peter saying, "I made a promise to stay away from you, a promise that I couldn't keep." And then Gwen gets kidnapped by the Goblin, he drops her through the clock tower, all that stuff. You see Peter sitting on the ledge, Aunt May saying, "Every decision you make affects the people you love. Spider-Man, you want to fight me, and then basically I want you to make Spider-Man bleed," and all that wonderful stuff. So, James, we'll start with you. Thoughts on this TV spot?
Well, actually, I saw this one aired during the MTV Movie Awards, only because my mom and my sister were watching it, and I remember, oh yeah, Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone are getting something during this, so I sat down and watched it, and I saw the trailer because I showed it a couple times, or not the trailer, the commercial, and I thought it was pretty good. Like, it really got me to being like, I want to go see this movie, and it also got other members of my family being like, oh my god, this movie looks good. Can we go with you?
I think that's definitely a good thing when you get non-Spider-Man fans saying, hey, this actually looks pretty good, can we go see it with you? Yeah. I'd say that's a victory for this TV spot then. But any other thoughts?
Oh, I liked it. It was really well done. I like the Gwen moments where they're teasing once again the fall, and Aunt May's line kind of makes you think that she is going to die. That she's saying, well, every action has a reason and death and all that stuff. It kind of makes me feel like, yeah, they are setting it up even more now that she's going to die. Everything I see with these trailers is just pointing to that. I mean, hopefully I'm wrong, but...
All right. Thomas, thoughts on the TV spot?
I thought it was definitely really good. I thought it was gets to the point very quickly, and it does an excellent job at selling this film for you. And it definitely hints at Gwen's fate, like, a lot. And he even says after, like, the point where you said, I made a promise to stay away from you. He says, what if something happens to you because of me? And, obviously we know what that's hinting to. And
the bridge.
Yeah. And I always kind of figured that she was going to die in this film. And I think anyone who hasn't at least considered it probably doesn't know the comics very well. It's a really good TV spot. Definitely sells the film really well, and it definitely reintroduces this idea that Gwen's gonna die, and I still stick with the fact that she's gonna die in this film.
All right. Any specific talking points that anyone wants to bring up from the TV spot? Anything anyone really liked?
When he's yelling up, "You want to fight someone? Fight me." I think he's yelling to Green Goblin before, obviously she gets dropped. And that is a completely awesome line and I think it was delivered excellently, if that's really in the movie, which I can tell it probably is this kind of idea of desperation. Please, you can do whatever you want to me, just leave her out of this. And that's really excellent. I definitely like his execution of that line.
Yeah, I got chills when he shouted that. I was like, holy crap. Either he's really mad or he's just really going to challenge this guy. I took it as he was more angry than anything else. Do we think that maybe this could be after Gwen's death? Maybe the Goblin's already killed Gwen, and Spider-Man's like, okay, you want to fight me?
No, he's standing on the top of a non-destructive skylight, though. And that's the skylight that Gwen falls through, and that he saves her.
Gosh damn it.
I actually, though, I know what you mean, because it feels like those moments in the comics after Gwen's death where he's just screaming at the Green Goblin, "You worm-eating scum," because it was the 70s in the comic code, and he couldn't say anything worse than that. But how he was like, just screaming and angry and mad and like, "You killed the woman I love, and I'm going to make you pay."
And when you're begging for death, I will remind you of one thing. You killed the woman I love, and for that you will die slowly.
That is so creepy how you got that completely right, I think.
No, he didn't. I actually just read that issue a few days ago. That was off.
Yeah, I was off a little bit, but...
sorry to burst your bubble, Thomas.
It's all right. No, I knew I was off. I was trying to figure it out.
But, I mean, like James is saying, that scene really did remind me of the beginning of 122, where Spider-Man, after he leaves Gwen on the ground, he goes up to the Goblin and says, you will pay for this. You want to fight me. I will destroy you, even if I have to go down with you. Now, of course, that's not an actual quote from the comic, but that's the basic gist of what he was trying to get at, and that was what that whole line of "you want to fight me." That's what that really reminded me of, if anything.
Well, I mean, I definitely agree that there's some similarities there. I just feel like that's more... I felt more desperation out of that than anger. I felt a lot more kind of, please don't do this. I know that you used to be... Because we know Harry's the Goblin. I know you used to be my friend. Please don't do this to her and to me. And, obviously, he drops her, so...
Yeah. All right. But any other talking points with this TV spot?
His greatest power is vengeance, is what it says.
All right. Are we supposed to care about that?
Yeah, because I definitely think that hints at Gwen dying, because...
It has to. His greatest power is vengeance, like he's getting revenge.
Yeah, he's getting revenge on the Green Goblin over what he did. So that's definitely what I think it alluded to.
All right, but final thoughts on this TV spot?
It was really good. It was the best one for this film so far.
Easily. All right, and our final news topic today is the MTV exclusive clip for The Amazing Spider-Man 2. This was shown during the MTV Movie Awards, and basically it's just a good kind of representation, or... I'm not sure how else you would describe it, but it's a good showing of how Spider-Man's spider sense works, and it shows that, he's aware of everything that's around him, he's aware of all the danger and everything, so that was kind of cool. It was a good way to showcase Spider-Man's spider sense. Of course, you got the shot of him, webbing the police car, saving the people, you got all that. That was pretty cool. Electro saying, "You set me up." "No, I didn't set you up." All that. That was pretty decent. Overall, I felt it was a fairly good clip. I didn't think it was anything spectacular, but it was a nice way to showcase how the spider sense works. And, it was a fairly decent clip. So, Thomas, thoughts on the clip?
I thought it was really good. It definitely emulates that kind of very same, what's the word I'm looking for? The very same way that Raimi did it in the first Spider-Man film. And there was one nitpick that I had for it, is that we see that the guys are about to touch the rail, and then it speeds back up to him, stopping it from, happening like that. How he, catches the car and everything, and how have they not touched the rail already? That was the one nitpick I had with that, is it just felt like too much time had passed for them to not already touch the rail.
All right, but other than that, I'd say you like this clip?
Yeah, I definitely did. I thought it was a pretty excellent showcase of his spider sense. It was pretty cool.
All right, James, thoughts on the clip?
Pretty much everything Thomas said. It's a pretty cool clip of the spider sense. The one really cool moment I like is when you're seeing the people when they're about to touch it in the slow-mo, you notice that there's a girl there who's about to touch it, but you don't really notice that she's carrying a kid until he flicks her arm back to covering the kid instead of touching on the rail. So you get the sense of, oh my God, he just saved that baby's life, not just her, but the baby's life. That part really kind of got me as, that's a really superhero thing to do. And it's just a really cool slow-mo shot, and it really shows off how Electro is really kind of nuts and screwed up here. And he's like, you betrayed me, or whatever he says. And then Peter, that shot of him saving the old man when the car's about to hit him because the one web shooter's busted. And so he only has to use one somehow to get this car to stop. And that's classic Peter Parker with the web shooters right there.
All right. And any talking points that anyone wants to hit up with this TV spot that hasn't already been discussed? Awesome.
No, just the whole thing was really awesome. Actually, the first part where we see Electro talking about how he's so selfish, I think that's him looking up at the screens and how it used to be directed more attention to Electro and how he was kind of, mesmerized by the fact that someone actually saw him for once, and now it's all directed on Spider-Man, and now Spider-Man's taken all that glory and stuff from him again, and how he feels like Spider-Man's doing this all for publicity at the same time, and so now he feels like he's been betrayed by his hero, and that's kind of why he goes after him.
All right, so final thoughts on this TV spot?
You mean the clip?
Or fuck me running the clip.
Yeah, it was really excellent. I liked it.
This is what happens when I'm pulling up what we're doing later and trying to talk at the same time. Yeah, so that's going to do it for the news topics this week. So, tackling reviews now. We have the final issue of Superior Spider-Man to talk about this week. Yes, we finally got Superior Spider-Man number 31. If my mouse will not fall off. Okay, good. It stopped moving. Because it was like my mouse was moving slowly. It was about to fall off my desk. That would not have been good. Superior Spider-Man number 31, we got this week. The final issue of Superior Spider-Man, written by Dan Slott and Christos Gage. Art by Giuseppe Camicoli. And then we also got a backup story called Actions and Consequences, I believe it was called. Yes, it was Actions and Consequences, written by Christos Gage and art by Will Sliney. Is that how you pronounce his name? I'm not sure. We will be tackling both stories, but I guess what we're going to do is basically just go around the panel. We're going to have everyone break it down, what they liked, what they didn't like, and then we'll go around for talking points, and then we'll give grades. So, Thomas, we're going to start with you. Why don't you break this issue down for us? Whatever you want to say about the issue.
Oh, you mean just like my rating and like what I thought of it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I would give it a solid A. I definitely think that this is like the thing that we've always been waiting for throughout the series is Peter coming back. Obviously, I definitely liked Peter's dialogue and how he immediately, the first thing that he does is try to fix everything that Otto did wrong, like how he calls Aunt May to like make sure that she's okay, and how he even says that Otto wouldn't have considered this important, but it's important to me, and how he deals with all the characters that Otto, had relationships that he screwed up with, like the Avengers and everything. One problem I did have with it, though, is the fact that he confronts the Avengers, and they're like, oh, we're going to have to, they talk about how he's been acting funny, and he's like, no, I've just been under, mind control. And they're like, oh, well, I guess that makes sense. And it's like, well, really? How come you didn't think of this before, and how come it makes so much sense now that it didn't make sense before? And I felt like that was a little bit weak in terms of the story, but I liked everything else about it. I definitely enjoyed the rest of it.
So you gave it an A? That would be your grade?
Yep, A, solid A.
All right, James, why don't you break the issue down, give us your grade, thoughts on it, all that stuff.
I would give it at most a C, because there's some stuff that just really nagged me, like Thomas brought up, the whole, he goes up to people and would just go mind swap, and they go, oh, yeah, I could tell you're acting like the real Spider-Man now, and it's all like, one, this is like the third different goddamn excuse this guy gave you in the last 12 months, And secondly, it's like you say, oh, now you're sounding like the real Spider-Man, so you must be telling the truth. It's like, then why didn't you ever think anything before this? I mean, like, seriously. And the Mary Jane moment in the one panel where she's all like, yeah, my ex-boyfriend's a dick. And it's like, didn't the last time she saw him, she believed the whole, it was the symbiote doing it. And now this issue, she goes, yeah, I broke up with him because he was a dick, pretty much. It's like, no, you forgave him.
I didn't like that either. That kind of rubbed me the wrong way, too.
You forget. It just pretty much just screams too much of, we're not going to get Peter and MJ back together, so she still thinks he's a jerk. That's what it screamed to me, was we had to make a reason why she still thinks he's a jerk, because we're not going to put them back together.
All right, other thoughts, James?
The fight with the Green Goblin, I thought was really, they built this up as going to be this ultimate showdown between the two, and it just really fell flat. It just felt like generic Spider-Man Green Goblin fight that you could see any other issue. It didn't feel like it raised any stakes, that it wasn't necessarily anything Otto couldn't solve or beat. And the can I say it, the reveal who he is, or do you want to save that for like the later talk?
Let's save that for the later talking point, because that's something I want to talk about.
Although it has, I will say this about it, and I'm not going to give it away. It has been keeping us guessing for quite a while, and I did like the payoff of it. And I don't think that I actually disagree with you on this point, James. I really, really liked the reveal, and I really think that there were huge stakes for the fight. Maybe I just disagree with you on that, but yeah.
I get that there was huge stakes. It's just the actual fight was underwhelming. Like, the actual stuff you were seeing, the fight was underwhelming. I know that the stakes were high because you had Anna Maria in the city and all that stuff, but when you watch it, it almost felt like you're paying $50 for a boxing fight and you end up getting it done in one round. That's how it felt to me. And it's stuff like that, and it's like the Aunt May line about, well, Otto would never think that this was important to call my Aunt May, and it's like, well, then what was all Annual #1 about then? Because wasn't that whole point that Aunt May got kidnapped and Otto snapped?
That is true. I didn't even think about that. I didn't
think about that either.
You
but
probably didn't even read Annual #1.
No, I actually did. I read Annual #1.
Oh, damn.
And yeah, it does seem kind of contradictory to it, but yet again, this is Peter's thoughts. And I think that when you have someone occupying your body for quite a while, and you don't think he's actually doing the best job, you're probably going to insult him in any way you can. And so he's probably not going to take into account that he did do that.
Well, plus Peter isn't even aware that he did that. Because he makes it very clear in this issue that pretty much a lot of the Superior run is blank to him.
Yeah.
All right, but any other thoughts, James? You gave it a C, if I'm correct.
Yeah, because I thought the art was really good, and I thought some of them was really good. It's just the negatives for me really outweighed the positives.
All right. In terms of my breakdown, I gotta say, I gave it an A- in my review. I'm gonna go down to a B+. I thought this was a pretty good issue. I'm kind of in the middle of Thomas and James. I did think that there were some moments where it was just like, okay, these people are acting like complete idiots. They should, the whole mind swap thing, it's just kind of explained away in one line and not really touched on at all. So that was something that kind of bothered me a little bit. I just felt that the mind swap thing was explained away a little bit too easily.
I would have felt better if the Avengers were like, we're going to need a lot more explanation than that, or something like that.
I would have felt better if they'd done that as well as Carly. I mean, I know Peter provided a decent explanation, but still, I felt that Carly should have been questioning it a bit more, or at least shown some sort of hesitance, and not just saying, oh yeah, Peter, you're back, and then 2099 just goes, yeah, that's Peter, and the Avengers just go, yeah, that's Spider-Man. I felt that they really should have just done something a little bit more creative than that. But in terms of pros for this issue, first off, I have to say this, and this is going to be a talking point for later. They got the character of Spider-Man right. I will give them that. Spider-Man was written very, very well in this issue. I've been saying it for a long time that Dan Slott and Christos Gage are improving in their writing of Spider-Man, particularly Dan Slott is. He's improving in his writing skills with Peter Parker and Spider-Man ever since Peter was taken out of the book. Dan Slott, to me, it seems like he's gone back and learned how to write Peter Parker, and he managed to write a good, solid Spider-Man plot here, and Christos Gage managed to really nail the script. I mean, I heard the distinct voice that I always hear for Spider-Man when I read the comics. I heard that voice. It was solid, no hesitation from it at all, so that was a big, big pro for me. Again, another pro, Kevin Coley. This has got to be the best issue I've ever seen from Kevin Coley. It was spot on.
Gorgeous. Yeah.
I mean, the particular panel that I want to point out from Kevin Coley, and I'm looking at it right now, the very first page where the Green Goblin has Anna Maria, and he's holding her on top of a building and says, "Look upon my Goblin Nation." That was gorgeous. I mean, that was an absolutely gorgeous panel. They managed to nail that completely.
Can we talk about... Never mind. Go ahead, finish up.
Action sequences in this issue. For me, I didn't really feel... I was kind of a mix between Thomas and James. I didn't feel the action sequences were anything special, but you know what? It was decent enough. The artwork was what really sold the action for me. And my final pro of the issue is that Anna Maria did actually survive. And I really, really like the ending scene with Anna Maria and Spider-Man because it sets up what could happen in Amazing Spider-Man, the relaunch, with Peter and Anna Maria. And I think that's a really, really, really good story that could be very, very well handled. Now, here, my con for this issue would be the Goblin reveal. The Goblin reveal... I mean, this will start our talking points segment, so I'll just go ahead and blow it. It's revealed to be Mason Banks, all right? Mason Banks, though, is not who he seems to be. Mason Banks is really Norman Osborn with a fake mustache and hair and everything.
Plastic surgery, right?
Yeah. This is why it's crap, all right? And this is why I don't like it. Throughout this whole run, they've been saying that, yes, it is Norman Osborn. Now, none of us believed it, and that's fine. Here's my problem with it, though. They've been implying throughout this whole time that it's somebody different. Even though they've been saying it's Norman, they've been kind of leading us in a different direction, saying, oh, well, we may not be telling the truth. I mean, a classic example for me is issue 25, when he tells Carly that, oh, it's me, Norman Osborn, but he refuses to take off the mask. That, to me, was building up that, yeah, this is not Norman Osborn. They've been building up this mystery of who this goblin is, and it's exactly who they said it was. I don't like that, because to me, that's not a very satisfying payoff. I felt that, the song Build Me Up Buttercup really does apply here. I don't know if anyone who's listened to this podcast knows that song. Great song. Played it in marching band. But, yeah, to me, there's no shock. It's just Norman. It's like they set this up and they don't pay it off. It's just, it really was disappointing for me. And it's like, just, come on.
I definitely don't agree with that.
All right, well, we can get into it, absolutely. Thomas, why don't you agree with me?
Well, yeah, you've been saying that it is Norman Osborn, and I think that they've been beating us down like this idea that it probably isn't Norman Osborn, and I do agree with that completely, but at the same time, them revealing it was Norman, yeah, honestly, I didn't mind that at all. Because the reason that he didn't want to take off the mask is he couldn't really prove he was Norman Osborn that way. Yeah, because he did the plastic surgery and stuff. And it's kind of like it's been Norman, and I've kind of wanted it to be ever since we first heard about it, because I kind of wanted to see Otto and Norman fight. Even if they didn't fight at the end, at least he was in opposition against Norman for a little bit, and we got to see that. And I thought that makes it even better that we finally actually did get to see at least a little bit of that kind of conflict between Otto and Norman, and I did like that. And honestly, bringing back Norman like that, I thought it was much better than like anything that I would have personally come up with. It was, and I think that it was a huge payoff that they have like, you know, the kind of classic I really am Norman Osborn kind of thing, and I definitely liked it. I thought it was much better than obviously you did.
It just, to me, like I said, to me, it wasn't a satisfying payoff. It's like, okay, you've built up this mystery, and it's exactly who you've kind of been supposedly misleading us with. To me, that's just not a satisfying payoff. To me, they had the chance to do something, you know, really wild and crazy here, and yet they played it safe. I didn't like that. I really didn't.
Would you have been happier if the Goblin King was Tony Stark?
That would have been weird.
Guys, I got a theory about that. I got my own opinion prediction on what I think it is.
All right, go ahead.
How they're gonna solve a way, because that was a little bit too obvious. The whole he takes off the mask and it's somebody I never saw before. No, I'm Norman Osborn, and here's all Expedition proving it, and the whole turning him sane thing. It's not Norman. Banks is either lying or Norman brainwashed him into believing he's Norman.
Ugh, wow, but it feels like you've already gone through with it. You might as well stick with it. That almost feels like a complete cop-out to get out of, like, you know, getting insulted for what you did.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be a fan of that if they did that. I would rather this, because honestly, that's an even worse ending to this than,
But it's not really copped out if that's the plan that Slott's doing. Like, I'm playing devil's advocate here. If, let's say that's the plan, like, let's say a year from now he does like a kind of like a sequel issue with a new Amazing Spider-Man volume, where you get to it and you find out that you see Banks's, you know, wherever he's hiding out at, saying he's Norman Osborn and everything, but then you see like he has Norman's comatose body and he has maybe the Otto body, and then you find out he just kidnapped these guys, and you know, he's so nuts he believes he's really Norman Osborn. He believes that, well, I took Norman's body, Norman's here, I'm the new Norman Osborn.
I'm not a huge fan of that.
Yeah, I'm not either. It's just, I'd honestly, to me, that's kind of just not very good. To me, this I'm not a fan of. That's even worse, to be quite honest.
I actually like this, so obviously I'm going to be a little bit more okay with just keeping it the way it is. So you're probably not going to get much approval from me there. I really hope that's not where they're going. I think that would be even more of a letdown for me.
To me, this is already a letdown, so it's just, I wasn't a fan of how they did this.
I mean, like, now that you've done it, I think that you should just stick with it. You've made the big reveal, and then it kind of, like, takes away from the fact that you've been teasing that this was the reveal, and then you were like, oh, wait, no, but that wasn't really a reveal, because the guy pulling the strings was really Norman Osborn, but he wasn't there.
Kind of like the Hobgoblin story in the 80s.
That's what I got. That's where I'm going with. It's like a Hobgoblin thing where he brainwashed this guy into thinking he's Norman.
The Winkler device, like we saw Kingsley using on that one guy at the end of 26.
Yeah, it's right there. The Winkler device. Who says that Norman wasn't using one of those to make Banks? What if that's a hint that that's where they're going?
But we're seeing that plot already. It's like, are they... To me, that says, okay, we're out of ideas. We're going to use the same plot twice.
Yep, well, this at least I feel is sort of original. Not like the most original thing I've ever read, but I mean, like, it doesn't... There's not really anything that immediately comes to mind for me that I go like, oh, they just totally copied that. That would be like a complete copy of like a story that we've already seen, and I don't really want to see that.
No, I agree with you guys. I'm just saying, no, this is comics, and they're going to go back to the classic Norman look one day, and they're going to go back to him being insane, and I can see Slott doing that where, you know, they write it as it's like the Hobgoblin where this guy is brainwashed to think that he's Norman. Or he's just lying, saying he was Norman.
You know what? I mean, there's no doubt that they are going to return to the status quo at some point in this amazing relaunch. I'm just not a fan of how this was done here, and it just didn't sit well with me. But another talking point I want to bring up is the Anna Maria story. Anybody besides me glad to see her survive?
Yeah, I actually think it opens up not only just keeping the character alive, because, you know, she's becoming a truly endearing and compassionate character that I think everybody can like, because out of everyone that Otto was a complete jerk to. She was the only one that he wasn't. That he was a nice guy, and he could be himself with her, and I feel like that's really good thing. And with Anna Maria, it becomes even more tragic because now Otto's gone. The very person that she loved and that she grew to know as Peter Parker is no longer there. And now it's Peter, and I think this is going to – and for anything else, even if Anna Maria would have died, I think that the biggest mistake would have been to not carry on this creative idea of having Peter and their relationship continue because Peter feels guilty about what happened with Otto, and because Otto was, the person that Anna Maria had known and loved. And I'm interested in seeing how Peter reacts to that.
I'm definitely interested in seeing this storyline. It's going to be like, well, how does Peter react to, he gets his body back and he has a girlfriend who he has no feelings for, he has no connection to her at all. How does he react to that? I'm really, really interested in seeing that story, and I think that'll be a good story that we could go off of, for probably the first couple issues of Amazing. I don't know how long they're going to keep the story around.
I don't know the longevity of a story like that is the issue. I don't know how long that would keep audiences interested. Yeah,
I mean, you can only hang on to that for so long, so I do think that if they play it right, it could be a great story. So I'm definitely interested to see what they could do with it.
Yeah, I got a feeling that, similar to you guys, that it's just to create the drama, of, Peter he feels guilty because this was Otto's girl, but he doesn't want to break her heart because the man she really fell in love with is dead, and he was in Peter's body, so Peter has to feel like I have to be with this girl, but he has no romantic feelings for her. And I wouldn't be surprised if issue 2 or 3 or something of the new run, they introduce yet another new love interest for Peter, and he's getting feelings for this girl, but he's conflicted because he really doesn't have any feelings for Anna Maria, but Peter's no cheater. So I can see them doing it as Peter Parker drama where he's starting to get romantic feelings for someone who he actually cares about, but he's in a relationship with Anna Maria because he feels like he has to for Otto.
That very well could be a great story. I really do believe it could be a great story.
I think that all it is it just, like most stories, just depends on the execution. And I really hope that, considering how well, for me at least, these last few issues by Slott have been executed, I hope that it is executed just as well as I think it will be.
All right, but any other talking points that we want to bring up with this issue? I feel like I'm
yes. At the very beginning, when Peter explains to Carly how he is, does anybody notice that he uses the fact that he was in Otto's body to do that?
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, but remember, if it was just a manifestation of Peter's memories, like Otto said it was, he wouldn't know that because if the memories were just manifesting, he wouldn't have ever really been in Otto's body. So that means that the real Peter Parker that was trapped in Otto's body went back to his own body.
I think that was established quite a while ago, though.
I'm just saying that this is official confirmation.
Yeah, that's the subtle nod of how would the memories that Otto had, and we know that.
Yeah, I mean,
I know. I'm just saying that this is official confirmation because a while ago it just seemed like that was what was going on, and I mean, I definitely got the impression that this was the real Peter Parker, throughout the last few issues. It just feels nice to finally have that kind of confirmation.
Another thing to bring it up, that's why I'm okay with the Carly thing, because he brought up something that only the real Peter would know, not memories, not Otto lying. Only way that Peter would know that is if it was the Peter who was in Otto's body. So I was okay with her. The thing that makes me pissed off is the Avengers and everybody else.
Oh,
because
yes, yeah.
This is his third different excuse, and it's the truth this time. But he has given, people saying, oh, he did all this stuff because he's just going for a hard time after the whole Otto situation with 700. Then he went for the symbiote explanation. And now you had this where it's mind swap. Wouldn't somebody say, okay, you gave us 3 or 4 different excuses. Which one is it? Tell us the truth now. Explain yourself.
Yeah, the Avengers, I mean, I think we've established on this show before that every scene with the Avengers in Superior sucks in some way. I'm pretty sure that's been established already. Yeah.
This just continues that trend. I was a little bit upset with just every single scene with the Avengers. It feels like they're trying to establish how much of a bunch of morons they are.
And the problem
that
is
this
none of these
really
people are
feels
actually
like that.
dumb.
Oh, I know. And we've established through decades of comic books that these guys aren't idiots. But they totally feel like this throughout the entire story on how Otto completely sells them on all this. And now, on top of that, he's given them not exactly what James said. This is his third excuse, and they're just going to buy it? Especially if it's like something as because Dan Slott kept saying how far-fetched it was, and I guess, yeah. But in the Marvel Universe, it isn't really that far-fetched, but let's just say it's really far-fetched. How come they just accept that, like right on the spot? Oh, totally, it all makes sense now, and we're just going to go along with it. Well, wouldn't you at least like do more tests on the guy?
Yeah, the Avengers are not handled well in this series at all.
Thomas, how would they do tests if when he actually was, possessed with another mind in his body, they didn't do anything?
What they did before is they didn't bring in Tony Stark and Hank Pym, and they conveniently wrote off excuses for not to bring them in. And now they have him, so why don't they do that?
Well, they had Tony Stark in number 26.
Exactly. Now they have him, so do that.
Well, now it's just going to come up
immediately
again.
after the Goblin Nation thing is solved, to do that.
But Otto erased all traces of him out of Peter's memory that we know of, right? So if they do so by that logic, if they do the test, they're not going to even find no traces that Otto was ever in that mind. So the test would be pointless. It would still just be his word against yours.
Exactly. That is something to point out.
Oh yeah, but it just really makes me mad that they don't try to do anything else besides, oh, we'll just accept it. It's perfectly fine. How many times has Otto lied to him then? If that's the case, then Otto has lied to them the whole time.
Yeah, but I gotta ask any other talking points. I got one more.
Okay.
Well, I want to know if you guys have any more before I get mine.
No.
I got the Mary Jane thing, about how I didn't really like her in this issue, but that also goes on to the next, story. So I'll just wait for them.
I really, really want to talk. I mean, we've talked about Cameron Coley before, and I mentioned him before in my breakdown.
Yep.
Can we just say Cameron Coley is easily the best artist on Spider-Man right now?
Yeah, and it makes me sad that he's not the one going on to the Amazing Spider-Man.
Oh, I have good news.
What?
I think from what I read, there is a rotation for Amazing Spider-Man, and that he is on it.
Oh, really?
That's from what I read.
Where did you read it?
I'm blanking on where I read it. I think it was CBR, but I can't be quite sure.
Well, then it's probably you got to switch off every 3 issues. Then that would mean, or something like that, 4, 5. Don't know.
Well, I mean, if you're doing, here's what's going to happen with Amazing Spider-Man is, what they're doing is, while Learning to Crawl is happening, they're doing 1 issue a month. 1 issue a month. But once Learning to Crawl ends, they're going back to 2 issues of Amazing Spider-Man every month. An artist can't, an artist will need breaks from doing 2 issues a month.
I don't think they're doing
that. Is that what happened now? Oh, I thought it was just going to be 1 issue a month forever.
Yeah, because issue 9 starts the Spider-Verse. And that would mean that it would be still once a month for 3 months after Learning to Crawl even ends, because Learning to Crawl is only a 6-part series.
So let's see, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November. Yeah, see, because November starts Spider-Verse, and they say that number 9 starts it, but then if we're going by just doing 1 a month, number 9 would be in December. So yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Number 9 would be in December. So yeah, it is switching back to 2 a month.
Yeah.
So, I hear that I heard somewhere, I can't remember where it was. I'm so sorry. I really, really wish I could. I think it might have actually been Dan Slott's Twitter, because I do remember him tweeting something about how Humberto Ramos and Cameron Coley created something for Spider-Verse.
Mm-hmm.
So I do remember that. It might have actually been his Twitter. It was either his Twitter or CBR. It had to be either one of those two.
Mm-hmm.
But Cameron Coley, he did an absolutely perfect job on this issue. I had no problems aesthetic-wise. It all looked gorgeous.
Yep.
Everything was absolutely fantastic, and I really hope that what I read about him being on a rotation for the Amazing Spider-Man relaunch is true, because Cameron Coley's probably in one of my top 10 Spider-Man artists.
Yeah, Cam Coley, I think, is by far the best Spider-Man artist right now, and I'm really hoping that you're right. And he just totally killed this issue. It was awesome.
Absolutely.
I like the scene where he's like talking to Aunt May, where he phones her, where he's like swinging. That shot right there is gorgeous. I love that.
And
that was absolutely great.
Yeah, I'm staring at that panel right now. It's one of the best panels I have ever seen of Spider-Man. I just can't keep my eyes off it.
Yep.
And I gotta say, I mean, this is one last talking point I have before we go around for grades, for final grades. I mean, this issue, more than anything that Superior has put out, this issue felt like a classic Spider-Man story to me.
Yes, it did. Me too. Absolutely.
This just had that feel. I mean, I can't really describe it, but this had that feeling of, okay, this is classic Spider-Man. Peter Parker making jokes to the villains, Spider-Man, Spider-Man making jokes, Spider-Man, not letting anyone die, having moral values. This felt like a classic Spider-Man story to me, and I really liked it.
That's the one thing I really liked. It's when Peter starts making the jokes and the puns that it tips it off to the Goblin that is the real Spider-Man again.
Oh yeah,
I love that
dignity
moment.
of knowing that I never carried a man purse.
Yes, at least I have the dignity of knowing I never carried a man purse. It is you! Shit!
I just got this image. If it was Norman, I can just see, inside that Bing's face, the biggest grin ever of, I'm going to kill the Peter Parker's body, and it's going to be the most easiest thing ever because it's Otto, and Otto's a loser. Otto's stupid. Otto sucks. And I'm going to kill Spider-Man and him killing two birds with the same stone. And it's like, at least I don't have a man purse. Shit.
This
like,
wasn't in the program.
Some of John's language. He's using some of John's language as he goes like, crap.
What?
Because you say shit a lot.
I'm talking about the F word.
Oh, okay. I don't drop that many F-bombs.
Yes, you do.
All right.
A lot more than both of us.
Well, yeah, but not more than Ed Jones. But, yeah, I love Ed Jones. That's not a bash against him. He's awesome. So any other talking points we want to talk about with this story before we go around for final grades?
No, I really enjoyed this issue, and so I don't really have anything else. I think we talked about most of it, right?
Yeah, so final grade out of me is a B+. Thomas?
I'm gonna start. I'm just gonna keep my old grade solid A.
And James?
Still C.
All right. So we got a B+, an A, and a C. That's an all right rating for this podcast. Now, the second story we have in here, written by Christos Gage, art by Will Sliney. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing that last name right. I don't know how to pronounce it. But Actions Have Consequences is the title of this story. And this, I felt, was basically an epilogue to everything that's happened in Superior, at least the Peter Parker side of it. I felt that this was a nice epilogue. I guess I'll start the breakdowns of it. I like this story. I know a lot of people have problems with it. Here's why I like this story. This is showing that MJ is not completely dependent on Peter. She is her own character, and it really does make her the strong, independent woman that I think we've always been shown that she is. I did like that. Now, I did think there were a few moments where she was kind of a quote-unquote female dog. Since I just got bashed for swearing, I won't swear. But she says, she doesn't even let Peter explain what happened. She just said, Peter, stop. I believe you. I know things like this happen to you. And I understand it's not your fault. It's your life. But I can't have it be my life anymore.
Oh, yeah, where she's kind of being a bitch. Yeah.
She kind of cuts him off mid-sentence. I didn't like that per se, but I like the idea of what she's doing. And once again, I think this will set up a good story because the solicitations for Amazing Spider-Man number 3 in June say that Spider-Man has to team up with her new boyfriend, Ollie. I think that can make an interesting story. And you know what? I just didn't have a problem with this. I really didn't. I mean, I know that you guys probably have some problems with it, but I honestly didn't. My main problem with this issue, or with this story, was the Jay Jameson bit. He goes from yelling at Peter to just accepting of his apology in about 30 seconds. Yeah, that's not satisfying at all. That shouldn't have happened that way. And of course, the other pro I had for this issue was pretty much everything with Mayor Jameson. I loved how that sort of turned out with him, and I love that he showed that he is a man of honesty and integrity, and he resigned from office. I did like that. So, overall, as a grade, I'd give this story a B. Thought it was pretty decent. I didn't really have many problems with it. Like I said, the Jay Jameson seems a bit of a problem for me. And the whole thing of, everyone just believes Peter's excuses, like that. That carries over from the previous story. That's another con with this story. But overall, I give it a B. Thought it was good. So, James, we'll let you break down the issue. Give us your thoughts on it and your grade.
Mike, I'll go with my grade first, and my grade is an S and a Q for status quo.
Oh, I thought you said F and Q. I was like, what?
No, S and Q.
Okay, S and Q.
For status quo. That's all it is. Jonah resigns from being mayor, which he's going to go back to the Bugle and blame Spider-Man for him no longer being mayor. Then you got, Aunt May forgives him. J. Jonah forgives him. Everybody starts forgiving. Everybody, it's Spider-Man 3 all over again. Peter's back to normal. Everything's back to normal. And Mary Jane becomes a bitch. Because she does. It's like almost like Slott knows that, holy crap, we were setting up with Spider Island from the original Stan Slott run all the way up until 700, that him and Mary Jane are going to get back together, and then we did the whole twist of it's Otto, and Otto breaks up with her by issue 2, and now it's like, well, now we're getting the actual Peter back, and it's almost like nothing can stop them, so we have to give some reason for why they can't get back together, other than just she already has a new boyfriend. He's doing the whole Anna Maria where I have to be with her bit. No, we have to make it that Mary Jane completely goes, I can't be with you because I believe you, because I believed every other goddamn thing I've been told in the storyline, but I just can't be with you because this crap keeps on happening. And it's all like, the Mary Jane I know would not act that way. Like maybe in the 70s when she would run from her problems, but this is a Mary Jane that matured and grew up from that point.
But don't you think there could be a breaking point? I mean, everyone has their breaking point, and Mary Jane has been through so much. Don't you think she might be, do you kind of get where we're coming from with this?
No, I can see that. I just don't like how the way they had it where she sounded like she was a bitch, how she wouldn't even let Peter talk about it. It was all like, here's my problems, me, and then she left.
Well, I think that, yeah, everyone has a breaking point, but I didn't think that this was entirely fair to him at all. It's not his fault that this happened. It's not, and I know she even says that. It just didn't feel like this is the kind of stuff that she should be saying. It didn't, after all the stuff that had happened to her, she's still mad at him for everything Otto did. You can kind of tell that, and that's not fair. That's not fair at all. And now she's like shunning him because of that.
Because it's not like the thing of, well, Peter chose to go help the cops during a bank robbery instead of going on a date, classic superhero stick, of she's mad at him that he chose, doing something Spider-Man instead of going on a date. It's not like he asked Otto to switch minds with him. It's nothing he could control. But it's like he's blaming him.
But she acknowledges that, and she says, it's not your fault, it's your life. I understand that. I don't want it to be my life anymore. I can't handle it anymore.
It just read off to me as, because they also wrote off Carly, right?
Yes, they did.
Yeah, they wrote off Carly. It wrote off as, okay, we're writing off the two other love interests. That way we can set up to Anna Maria, same with Peter in the first few issues. And in a way, I would have expected more of the Mary Jane lines to come out of Carly, especially since she was the one who was turned into a goblin and everything's online. I would expect more of Carly being the one bitchy and pissed off about, I hate your life, because she did this during Spider Island. And
No, but I think that's a lot more warranted. I mean, what did MJ go through? That's what I had to get everybody out. And then you have Carly, who actually went through something that was bad, and she doesn't say anything remotely as bad.
She just goes out leaving town. That was it, pretty much, right? She's just like, I'm leaving town because I just mostly just read this one time. This backup because I didn't really like the Mary Jane portrayal. It felt like even when they're writing off Carly, they have to make her out like she's better than Mary Jane by having Mary Jane being kind of like a psycho bitch ex-girlfriend getting all pissed off at Peter, and Carly was mostly just, yeah, I'm leaving. Bye.
All right.
I felt like that was more warranted for Carly to say.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Went through way more than Mary Jane did.
They should have flip-flopped it. What Mary Jane said should have been what Carly said, and what Carly said should have been what Mary Jane said.
But Mary Jane, here's my argument against that. And we're making a good dialogue out of this. I'm proud of you guys. But I gotta say, Mary Jane has been through a lot more in terms of the entire Spider history. Because she was around way, way, way before Carly ever was. She's known that Peter Parker is Spider-Man all that time. I mean, I'm going back to issue 257 where he gets attacked by the Puma in his apartment, and Peter throws MJ out, and Mary Jane's slamming on the door saying, Peter, what's wrong? You know, and at the end of that issue, she says...
Yeah, but that's our point, though. If you like that stuff, Civil War, the Clone Saga, I mean, just like
she
Civil
stood
War,
with
she
him
was a
through
wanted
all of that, and now she can't handle this.
But this is her breaking point.
She technically still with him.
There are so many worse things that have happened. This isn't even Peter's fault. All the other things that have happened that have been bad have been Peter's fault. This isn't even Peter's fault, and this is her breaking point. It should have been something else.
Yeah, if it was, she went through the Clone Saga with him, where he went through the whole "I am the Spider, I'm not Peter Parker no more," where he didn't even come home at night, where he was out being Spider-Man 24/7 because he snapped and said, "I'm no longer Peter Parker. I hate Peter Parker." Remember that. She stuck with him for that. She stuck with him during Civil War. She stuck with him during Back in Black, even after One More Day and Brandy Day, kind of like when she stuck with him with that decision. All this stuff that were really bad that you can even blame Peter for, she stuck with something that he had no power over whatsoever. That's the breaking point that didn't even really affect her. Like, what happened to her? She got a new boyfriend. Nothing really bad really affected her here until the Goblin Nation arc.
I see what you guys are saying. I do. I agree to disagree. Can we say that? Can we shake on it, gentlemen?
Yeah, because this is never going to end. Otherwise,
it's never going to end if we don't. Yep. But Thomas, you haven't done your breakdown yet. Why don't you break it down for us if you have anything left?
I don't really have anything left, but I will give a grade. I'm going to actually give it a solid C. I did not like the way the characters were handled. Carly was handled way better than Mary Jane was. As I said before, I think that dialogue should have been switched. Carly went through way more in this story arc than Mary Jane did. And Mary Jane was portrayed as an idiot throughout the entire thing. And so she should not be upset with Peter that she bought every single lie from Otto. That should not be
Which
Peter's
is out
fault.
of character, too.
Yeah, exactly. And so it really gets at me, and I have to make sure that it just makes me not like this story, this particular part of the story, so I'm going to give it a C.
All right, so now here's something that I wanted to do, and so I made these guys kind of think about their answers to this. Since this is the final issue of Superior Spider-Man, I do kind of want to talk about Superior Spider-Man as a whole, because this is the last time we're going to be reviewing a Superior book on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So I really want to, get everyone's overall thoughts on Superior as a series. So would anyone in particular like to go first? I don't want to throw anyone on the spot.
It's all right. I'll go first. For me, it's been a roller coaster, and I don't mean that necessarily in a good or bad way. I feel like in terms of quality, that's what it's been. It's had its really, really, really highs, and then all of a sudden it just goes really, really, really down low. And I mean, this last arc in total has been really, really high, but Darkest Hour, not the best work.
Oh, please, that was shit. Just say it.
I'm so
it was
pissed
really
off
bad.
Podcast
it was
there.
really bad. I have to admit that was pretty darn bad. I hated that arc. I did not like certain issues at the beginning when the Avengers were testing Peter and how they just kind of bought that he was really Peter and everything, even though he wasn't, and they could have done more. It just seems like there was so many plot holes just for the sake of keeping the story going on longer that they could have been addressed a little bit better. And it was up and down for me, and I would say overall it was kind of average for me.
All right, James, what are your thoughts on Superior overall?
Well, that's going to be really difficult for me since I dropped the title midway through.
Oh yeah, you didn't read half of it.
So obviously, to be fair, because I know some people on CBR, including Dan Slott, gave me shit for saying something about issues I did read and not the ones I didn't read, even for whatever reason. But so I'm going to make sure I'm making this pretty clear. These are the issues I read. I didn't really enjoy the arc. It's the stupidity from characters like the Mary Janes and the Avengers in the first 9 issues where they completely bought everything, and then you had the cops being like, Spider-Man shot a guy. What are you going to do about it? And they're going to be like, well, technically, we didn't see it happen. Where any other time, where if they even thought that Spider-Man was 5 blocks away from a murder, they immediately blamed him. And stuff like that just completely rubbed me the wrong way. And then I came back in with Darkest Hour. So, enough said with that. So, I didn't really enjoy it. That's all I can pretty much say about this book.
All right, and my thoughts on Superior, because here's the thing. In preparation for this, I actually went back and reread all of Superior Spider-Man.
Ooh.
I have to say, it's not as good as I thought I remembered it being. I mean, here's the thing. First issue, fantastic.
I definitely like that too. Yeah.
Love the first issue of Superior Spider-Man. Gave it an A. Love that issue. As you go on, you just see it's just a Dan Slott Spider-Man comic. It's mediocre at its finest. It's awfully mediocre at many points. You know, it's like Troubled Mind, awfully mediocre at best. No Escape, mediocre. The Massacre stuff, mediocre. The Hobgoblin stuff, mediocre. The only 2 story arcs out of this whole Superior run that I can think of that were above mediocre at best.
2099.
That's what I was going to say. 2099. 2099 had its ups and downs, but overall it was decent. And this Goblin Nation arc. Goblin Nation, I still feel, is the best story Stan Slott has ever written.
Oh, absolutely. I'm totally 100% with you on that one. I really, really like this arc. And he personified Peter much better than he did ever.
Goblin Nation absolutely kicked ass. I loved Goblin Nation. I gave 4 out of the 5 issues of it. I gave 3 out of 5 issues an A, and I gave 1 issue a B+ and 1 issue a B-. That's fairly positive scores from me. And yeah. I gotta say, you know what? Goblin Nation is very good. Darkest Hour, we won't even talk about that. That was so bad.
I'm just gonna forget that ever happened.
Yeah, well, let's forget that arc ever happened.
In a lot of ways, I feel like Superior is similar to Clone Saga, where it went on way longer than it should have, and it's not like the Clone Saga where it was because of where they had a good idea and it got destroyed because of editorial mandates. This one read as Dan Slott wanted to have the whole over a year-long series about Otto and the Body, which is a story you can't tell without making people look stupid, which ended up happening. There's a lot of characters in the Marvel Universe who I used to really respect and love, who now I look at them, even when I went to go see Captain America, Winter Soldier, back in my head I'm thinking, he's this big, badass, intelligent, smart superhero, and I'm thinking, he couldn't tell the difference between Spider-Man and Ock.
Yeah.
That is something I think we should point out, is this series really did go on too long.
I think it did. I felt like it was a lot like Clone Saga, although it was the opposite, like James said, where it wasn't the editorial, it was Dan Slott. Dan Slott even said that the editorial only wanted him to go for 15 issues or something, and he said, I can keep this going until The Amazing Spider-Man 2. It's all good.
He wanted to keep on going until next year with the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, he wanted to make this go even longer.
Well, he said Spider-Verse was supposed to be where Darkest Hour was.
What?
He wanted, so instead of having Spider-Verse where Darkest Hour was supposed to be, he made Darkest Hour and pushed Spider-Verse back because they said it should be a Peter Parker Spider-Man story.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, Dan Slott, I'm pretty sure he said at some point he wanted this to go on indefinitely, and that is something that should not happen, because
definitely.
Oh, absolutely not. I don't really think that was for real. I think he was just doing that to troll people, wasn't he?
No, because even towards the end, like when you're getting back to the return of Peter Parker, he'll still say in interviews, like, oh yeah, this was originally an idea for Superior, but I had to stop it because of whatever reason. Or he'll go like, yeah, if I continue Superior, this would have been and stuff like that. And it just feels like he wanted to keep on going with Otto as Peter. It was editorial mandates came down and said, no, the movie's coming out. You got to get Peter back.
This is the very last straw. You cannot cross this line. You can keep it going until this point, and now we're cutting you off. Is basically what they were saying, huh?
And I gotta say, I mean, this sounds horribly negative. I do think Superior could have been a great series, but it just wasn't executed very well in my mind, and really it went on too long. There were a lot of characterization issues. Like, had this been maybe a 5 or even 10 issue series, this would have been decent. But
yeah,
31 issues, absolutely not. No excuse for that.
Issue 9, when I dropped the book, when the Peter's mind was erased and all the people acting stupid, that is where it should have ended.
It really should have. I mean, I knew it wasn't going to end there because I knew that they weren't going to cop out of something that big that quick. But yeah. James is right. It should have ended with issue 9. And so, even though had it ended there, we wouldn't have gotten Goblin Nation and everything, I still would have preferred that because we wouldn't have had to put up with another year of this mediocrity. But here's another thing. Here's a pro for it going on so long. This has given Dan Slott time to learn how to write Peter Parker.
That's true. The last few issues have been the best Peter Parker writing I've seen from him ever. Ever. He nailed Peter Parker in the last few issues.
It feels really weird because I feel like his best Peter Parker stuff was back during the Brand New Day era, where he had 4 or 5 other writers who he had to bounce ideas off with some of them saying, no, this idea is really bad, but this idea is really good for you, you can do it, or this idea is not that good, but I can help you tweak it. Once he became the solo writer, I felt like it was like all gloves are off. He felt like he could do whatever he wanted with the character, and that's where you get the mediocrity. And that's where I'm kind of fearing now that he's back to Peter Parker, that might come back.
That is something I'm very hesitant about as well, is because now that Christos Gage is no longer going to be doing the script, are we going to be going back to this whole thing of, oh, these jokes are in here where they have no place being in here in this serious scene where Spider-Man would logically never make these jokes, or, oh, would we have this kind of dialogue or this kind of dialogue, which is not in character for Peter at all, because we do have to keep in mind, for a lot of these issues, Christos Gage has been writing the script. That is something I am concerned about, is will Dan Slott be able to hold up, this kind of quality Peter Parker writing by himself in Amazing? That is something I'm worried about.
I'm just hoping that unlike Big Time, when his run started, that there's not going to be an abundance of penis jokes and fart jokes and porn jokes like there was in his first few issues of Big Time. Because that got to the point that every issue there was some raunchy South Park joke about male genitalia or porn or something that made me go like, it's a Spider-Man comic, guys. This ain't Deadpool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. I'm kind of hesitant about that too, where he basically now has free reign over the character again, where no one's writing the script for him. And it's definitely been a benefit to have someone else doing the script, because in the scenes where it's supposed to be serious, you can tell it's serious. And then in the scenes where he's supposed to be making jokes, he does. It makes sense in a given the situation. And that's been some real benefit there. I'm just worried that, like, in cases such as, like, I'm worried that, like, in cases where, like, Dan Slott, if he was just the primary scriptwriter, where if he was talking to Doc Ock, he would have made some kind of joke about when he, like, revealed himself, some kind of weird joke, when that was supposed to be serious, and I felt like that was serious because the script basically made it serious. And I'm worried that that's probably what's going to happen, is that it's just going to be constantly joking about stuff that's pretty serious, and
Well, just look at how it was during those early Superior with Ghost Peter. How this guy's in your body. Well, that's really weird. I'm hearing feedback. This guy's in your body, and he killed somebody, shooting him in the face, and you're making jokes about, whoa, I wish I had ghost popcorn.
Yeah, this is sounding very, very negative right now, and, maybe it is, because
I didn't like it.
Because, James didn't like it, Thomas wasn't really too enthused about it, and I thought it was fairly mediocre for what it was. Do we think that Superior was... Do we think it was a bad series? I don't think it was bad, but I don't think it was good.
I think it stuck itself right in the middle and was perfectly okay with that.
And
that's what I think. I think in
it
general, it was like, I am aiming for the middle, and then that's where I want to be. It didn't aim to be better or worse.
I think it was bad. It could have been good, but it's not. That's. I just didn't like this run, and I know I dropped on half the book because we were going to be crap that I didn't read the other half. But from what I read, I didn't like it. Okay, and what I can tell from what I heard from you guys, talking to you guys on the show and other reviews and other lists and all that, the stuff in the middle that I missed doesn't really sound like it interests me that much or anything I would have liked anyways. So from what I read and from what I heard, this doesn't sound like something I would like. And from what I read, it was bad. It felt like it should have been only like the 10 to 15 issues, but because Dan Slott wanted to keep on going with the whole Octavia thing, it got to be in Clone Saga levels where you're making everybody look like a complete dumbass, applying every goddamn lame excuse ever given, where it's got to be enough already.
All right.
Harley thing. Oh, don't get me started on that with the grave. How it took her, what was it, like 20 issues to finally get there to visit him?
Yeah, and that never gets resolved. We still don't know where Doc Ock's body is. That never gets resolved.
No, it's like she finds out the truth, and it's like, oh, I know the truth now. And then she goes and
to the grave.
Does everything. No, but she goes and does everything else. Does she go to tell the Avengers this? Does she go to tell Aunt May and Mary Jane?
Nope.
Does she tell the police? Nope.
Yeah. Who's got feedback?
I don't know.
Never mind. But I guess the final thing for us to do here regarding Superior is overall grades. I know I didn't ask you guys to prepare this, but Thomas, what would you give Superior as an overall grade?
I know that we're probably not going to give very positive grades. And this isn't exactly the most positive, but I'll probably give it I'll just go with a B-. I think that there were slightly more ups than downs. Even parts where I was like rolling my eyes, I did enjoy a little bit. So I'm just going to give it a B-. I didn't enjoy it overall like I should have been able to, but I'm going to give it a B-.
All right, I'm personally going to give it a C, a solid C. I felt that it was an equal mix of decent to mediocre and then not so much. I felt that a lot of it was awfully mediocre, but there were good parts like Goblin Nation, like the 2099 arc, that did save it from a negative grade. I don't think it's worthy of anything above a C, but it's not exactly worthy of anything below a C either. So, solid C out of me on Superior Spider-Man. James, final grade on Superior Spider-Man?
For an altogether story, I give it an incomplete because I haven't read the full story. But from the stuff I have read, F. It's just, I didn't like this. I did not like it one bit. The characters are not nobody feels like the characters that I love. Not just Peter because it's Otto in the body, but nobody felt like any of the characters I cared about. The plot went on way too long, and it's like I'm reading even Darkest Hour, which is around the time I jump back, and a few issues before that, where I jump back on the book to do this podcast, and I'm like, these people still don't have a clue, and then you have the Carly stuff, and it's like, why isn't she going to tell the cops? And it's even here with Goblin Nation, and it ends with just, I'm sorry, mind wipe, and everybody forgives them. It just screams that this is a plot that should have never lasted this long, and so they have to half-ass the explanations because they wrote themselves into this is the only way they can get out of it, pretty much. I did not like it.
Wow, F is really, really negative.
Yeah, I did not expect that, James. Okay.
I honestly expected like a D. I knew you had negative opinions. I thought it would be a D.
The only other time I have ever given a Spider-Man related thing an F was One More Day. Every other thing, Clone Saga, Brand New Day, whatever, I give them positive or at least a C or a D or something. One More Day and this are the only two things I give an F.
Damn. All right, but final words on Superior Spider-Man. Anybody before we wrap it up? Put this to
Thank
bed.
God it's over.
All right.
I'm glad that it ended on a high note.
I will agree with you there, Thomas. It definitely, I'd say it started strong and it ended strong. The first issue and the last issue, fairly decent.
Yeah, I felt like it started off at a high point, and then you started to get really fatigued, and then in the middle it sagged, and then it came back up around the 2099, and then it sagged again, pretty much to an all new low, and then this last arc finally managed to build it up to, I would say, even the highest point. I really, really enjoyed this last arc, and it was better than anything else that's happened, and so I'm really glad that it ended on a high point, and I really hope that momentum carries on into the Amazing Spider-Man relaunch.
All right, and my final words on Superior. I am happy it's over. It was mediocre, but not terrible, I don't think. But now that we're done talking about Superior, we are going to move on to the classic reviews. And since this podcast is actually almost 2 hours long at this point, this is actually going to be the last thing we're going to do. We're not going to tackle listener questions this week. So to end the show off, we are going to tackle classic reviews. We got 3 issues to talk about this week. First up is Amazing Spider-Man number 23. Would anyone in particular like to break this issue down first? All right, James, you go first.
Oh, what was that? I had to leave for a second.
Oh, sorry. You're going to break down Amazing 23. What'd you think of it? What's your grade?
It's a good issue. It's a classic Green Goblin, pretty much. You got the big man, Foswell, Jonah's rehiring him, and they're kind of doing like little red herrings that maybe he's the Green Goblin. I got a sense of, even though he's been in jail the whole time that the Goblin's been around, but knowing Stan, he probably forgot about that, so he's doing the hints that he could be the Goblin because he just so happens to get released around the time the Goblin reappears, and it's just classic Spider-Man versus mobsters, and they're throwing the Green Goblin into it. The Lucky Lobo name, I think it's this classic 60s Silver Age Stanley goodness of, LL and Lucky Lobo, and it just sounds weird. And that's all I can pretty much say about this issue. It's a pretty good one.
What's your grade, James?
I would give it a B.
All right. Thomas, what are your thoughts and grade on Amazing 23?
It has that really classic 60s cheesiness about it. But there's no real reason to bring it down because this is obviously you have to keep the time period in mind. So I'm going to give it a solid B.
Did you read this issue, Thomas?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, I was going to say, because I was like, that's very, very vague. Not much detail in that at all.
Oh, can I add one real quickly?
Yeah.
I forgot that to myself if I don't say it.
Yeah.
I'll probably forget it again. It's also really cool because for people that don't know it, God damn it. Sorry, my computer just gave me an ad for a second. What I was going to say is, not Peter. This is the first appearance of Norman. Green Goblin's been in there from 14, but Norman's in here for the first time. He's a cameo in the background, unnamed, but Steve Ditko has gone back and said it's Norman, and that was going to be what sets up the clues of Norman being the Green Goblin.
Yes, that was actually a trivia point I was going to bring up in my breakdown. This is the first unnamed appearance of Norman Osborn. He would go on to appear in later issues before finally being named in, I think it was issue number 37. But this was his first appearance, so that is kind of a cool thing. My breakdown of this issue, I gotta say I like this issue. I thought it was a fairly good Green Goblin plot. Like we said, it was the first appearance of Norman Osborn. It was a fairly good plot. Green Goblin trying to take over, the gangs and all of that. It was fairly decent enough. The action sequences, the action sequences were solid. I didn't feel they were too long or too short. I particularly liked the battle between Spider-Man and the Green Goblin at the end. I thought that was very fun. The art in this issue, of course, absolutely fantastic. I love Steve Ditko's art. Very, very good. I like the supposed mystery of the Green Goblin's identity and it possibly being Frederick Foswell. I like that they did kind of hint at that a bit. It's kind of setting us up for, oh, well, who is the Green Goblin? Because I'm sure a lot of people have been wondering that. Who is the Green Goblin? We don't know at this point. Now, obviously, today we know it was Norman all along. But it was a good setup for a mystery, and I did like it overall. My one con for this issue is during his fight with the mobsters in about the middle of the issue, Spider-Man stops to call Aunt May, WTF.
I love that panel. The way he's sitting, too, with the smile and the legs crossed, he's like he's chit-chatting with he's some schoolgirl from the 50s chit-chatting about the boy while the records are playing.
Yeah, it's just like, what the hell was that? It's like you go from this really big action or this really serious action sequence to this little thing here that just kind of felt out of place. I didn't like that. I felt it was too stupid for anything, so I didn't like that. But overall, my grade on this issue is a B. So like these guys, I gave it a B as well. I think we got straight Bs across the board. Fairly good issue, good Green Goblin issue, and I ultimately don't have really too many complaints about it other than that one Aunt May scene. But other than that, I'd say we can move on to Amazing Spider-Man number 24. Thomas, we're going to start with you on this one. What are your thoughts and grade on Amazing 24? Or have you read it?
I have read it. I'm struggling to remember it right now, and I don't have it with me.
Do you have the book in proximity?
No.
Wait
1 second. I'm just gonna get a quick reminder. Why don't you start with one of you guys?
All right.
I'll go over it then if you want. Then again, I guess.
Yeah, James, go on.
Issue 24, the Spider-Man Goes Mad. I like it because it's once again...
yes, this one.
I like it because it's playing off what Peter has kind of feared for a while now. Like, there would be like a Mysterio issue or a Chameleon or whatever, or somebody would dress up like him, and he would literally, instead of doing common sense of it's another person just wearing my suit, he would do the whole... He would hear, like, Jonah saying, we got photographic evidence of Spider-Man robbing a bank, and he'll be going, did I do that? Are my spider powers making me go mad? And this is kind of like he goes to a psychiatrist, and it's, spoiler alerts, it's Mysterio. And he's like, I love it how he's like just like using these illusions of Otto and the Vulture and all these villains. And it's not necessarily Spider-Man that saves the day because he's buying into it, but it's his two greatest rivals. It's Jonah and Flash that end up saving the day.
That was a nice bit of irony in the issue, but what's your grade, James?
I would give this, I can't really give it an A, because like I said, it's not really Spider-Man saving the day, it's him blaming, oh my god, I'm going insane, and it's Jonah and Flash. So I would give him, instead of giving like an A+, I'm going to give him more like an A-.
Alright, and my breakdown of this issue, like James said, I like the plot of Spider-Man supposedly going crazy. I felt that was executed fairly well. I didn't mind the whole thing of, he's not able to figure out that, these are illusions or anything, because, he is paranoid by the point in the issue where the illusions start. So I wasn't bothered by that. The only thing I was bothered by in this issue was why Jonah Jameson didn't check for credentials on quote-unquote Dr. Reinhardt. But I can kind of let that go because it was the 60s. But it is just something that I was thinking throughout the entire issue was, okay, has Jonah checked for credentials on this guy? Has he run a background check on this guy? That's just me being logical. I like to be logical. But you know what? I can kind of let that go because it was the 60s. But overall, I'm going to give this issue a B, just like the last issue. I liked it. Had some problems with it, but overall, it was a decent enough issue. It was a good issue. Not anything bad, not anything mediocre. It was a good issue. Solid one from Lee and Ditko. So, Thomas, give us your breakdown and grade.
All right, so I remember this issue now. So you have all these like illusions, kind of like him seeing villains and him going after him and not being able to, he thinks he's going crazy, and so at this point he's already freaked out by the fact that he's Spider-Man and he has all these responsibilities, and now he's thinking that he's going crazy. So he goes to visit Dr. Reinhardt, and he tries to basically get him to reveal his secret identity to him, and we find out that it's Quentin Beck. And it's a pretty solid reveal because everything that happened made sense because it was Quentin Beck and it was Mysterio. So everything makes sense on why, we had all those, all the villains flying around and everything, all the ideas of him going crazy. It all makes sense because it was all placed there by Mysterio. So overall, I would say a pretty solid issue. Obviously, I agree with John that there is some plot hole-ish kind of stuff that's equivalent to the 60s, although that doesn't really bother me because obviously it's from that time period, so I'm going to give it an A-.
All right. And our final classic review for the week is Amazing 25. I'll go first on this one. First off, I love the plot with Peter and Flash. I love Flash chasing Peter around the city and back to his home. I thought that was very good. I really like the Peter Parker sides of this issue. I love Peter Parker supposedly getting cocky and saying, "Oh, well, this guy's this Spencer Smythe guy is a complete idiot. There's no way this robot's going to work, so I'm going to tell Jameson to actually follow him so that he can be made a laughingstock." I kind of like that. That was a nice little bit of irony in there. Again, I really like the Peter and Flash plot. I did like that quite a bit. It's good to see Flash fight for Liz. I did like that whole jealousy factor of it. Now, of course, later he turns into a stalker. But, I did kind of like it for what it was in this issue. Excuse me. It was good to see the ingenious side of Spider-Man in the way he defeated the Spider Slayer and Jameson and Smythe. By removing his costume and, filling it with webs to make it a puppet. That was kind of cool. That was a good ingenious side of Spider-Man that I always like seeing. And I felt that was done fairly well. In terms of the ending of this issue, I felt it was fairly solid. It's a classic Spider-Man ending. Will Peter be able to, will he be able to face his next challenge? That's the $1 million question, isn't it? I like that. It was fairly solid. And of course, my con for this issue was Betty Brant. She was annoying as hell and annoying as ever. But you know what? It's kind of become a staple of this run that Betty's going to be annoying. So I don't really hold that as much against the book as I did. As a grade, I'd give this one an A-. I liked it quite a bit, and I felt that it was fairly solid. So, James, we'll start with you. What is your breakdown and grade of Amazing 25?
It's a really good classic Ditko issue. It is the first appearance of Spencer Smythe and the Spider Slayer, even though it's just called here the Spider-Man robot or something like that. And those will become, some really big parts of Spider-Man's history. The Spider Slayers, even up until, of course, them killing Jonah's wife, and even with Goblin Nation. And it's the first appearance. Not just name only, and her face is covered, but it's the first appearance of Mary Jane, which, as you can tell, I'm a big Mary Jane fan, so I like that. You got the whole kind of everybody sees her and thinks she's a movie star, which, fits in the character, but her thought bubbles here don't really match the whole kind of hipster Mary Jane that she'll be in, when she actually appears.
Yeah, that was a pro of mine as well. I really did like how they handled Mary Jane in this one. I thought that was pretty cool, and I love the look on Betty and Liz's faces. When they finally saw who Mary Jane was, it's like,
another girl, and she looks like a movie star, or whatever the line they're saying.
She's a friend of Peter's. She looks like a screen star. He's been hiding her from us? Our shy, bashful, studious Peter? I love that panel. That was great.
And can I just say, at the end of the issue with Aunt May, when I reread this, all I can hear is, nobody washes the flag and we don't have a chimney, because now you can tell that this is what those scenes are based on.
Oh, yeah, because she finds his Spider-Man costume behind the bookcase, and, he says, "Oh, well, I'm obviously not Spider-Man." I can see where you draw that comparison, yeah. But what's your grade, James?
I would give this one an A, too.
All right. Thomas, breakdown and grade of Amazing 25?
So this is the first appearance of the Spider Slayers, so obviously this is a pretty iconic appearance, even though I would say it's a little underwhelming compared to what they become later on. But it also does kind of invoke that kind of irony that J. Jonah Jameson was helping the original Spider Slayer, and then, well, he actually kind of was, in some way, the original Spider Slayer, and then it's the thing that kills his wife. So, the kind of irony of that is it's not funny, because obviously it's tragic, but I don't know the way to describe it, but the irony's good there. And I guess props to Dan Slott for doing stuff like that with the character. And overall, I did like this issue. It's a pretty classic Steve Ditko issue. Spider-Man getting a little bit cocky there, and you know what happens when Spider-Man gets cocky? Bad things happen. So, overall, pretty good issue. I'm going to give it an A, solid A.
And this is something to point out, is that they actually credit Steve Ditko as the main plotter for this issue, while Stan Lee wrote the script. I believe this was the first issue that Ditko plotted by himself. James, am I correct on that?
It's the first one he's credited for, but most people believe that even going farther than this, he's been plotting it.
So, yeah, this is actually a fairly significant issue in terms of the Lee Ditko era. So that's kind of cool.
And you can definitely tell, because this is getting to the point where he's starting to plot stuff where it's no longer, he has the drama. Stanley always had this being a soap opera, but now you're getting to the dark Ditko stuff of everybody hates everybody and is mad at everybody. Everyone wants to fight and kill each other, and you can definitely tell that that's when Ditko started to being 100% the writer, and Stan has to somehow, try to masquerade around this stuff. Like, you get him trying to fight with hippies because Ditko had a different worldview than hippies, so you would have issues where Peter's mad at hippies, but then Stan Lee would have to find dialogue to make it sound like Peter's either with the hippies or just on the fence about whatever the issue is.
All right. But final thoughts on any of the classic issues we've talked about today?
They're all really solid issues, very, very memorable for very good reasons. They're all really, really good issues, and they resonate with the character, and they're the things that we always carry with the character. And so they're basically representative of the character going forward and what he originally thought and what he originally did. So it was definitely very good. I like all of the Stan Lee, Steve Ditko issues for the most part. So pretty solid for me. Overall, probably an A-.
All right. And James, any final thoughts on these issues?
There's classic Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. Some really classic first appearances in here, like technically Norman with the one panel, so I count that, even though he doesn't do anything. Spider Slayers and Mary Jane again is technically a kind of Norman Osborn thing, but those are iconic characters that are going to become big deals later on.
If you look in issue 25, Norman's also in issue 25, page 3, panel 5.
Yeah, I know he's in there.
Yeah. All right, and my final thoughts on these issues are, these are fairly good issues. I did enjoy them. So that's going to do it for the classic reviews this week, and it's also going to do it for this episode of the SpiderNerd podcast. Like I said, we're not going to do listener questions this week because this podcast is already over 2 hours, and we don't really need to make it any longer than that. So, Thomas, final words for the listeners before we sign off?
It's a big month, and it's really heating up before the release of The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I mean, obviously, you can see some reviews, and they're fairly positive, so I'm really looking forward to that, and just keep up with your Spider-Man.
All right, James, final words for the listeners before we sign off?
Just the normal, cheap plug to AGR. And I just got to say, I tweeted out earlier on the podcast about the whole, do you see any tears? Because another podcast Power Ranger podcast constantly makes the jokes of that. And they actually favored and retweeted it after I told them that Jonathan made a reference to it, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, because that was one of the Power Rangers episodes I saw. So yeah.
Everybody makes a joke at that line because the villain's trying to make the Red Ranger cry for some reason, and even the bully in the school's trying to make him cry, Thomas. And every time when the bully does something to pick on him, or the monster of the week when he finally does something to try to make the Red Ranger cry, the Red Ranger's line of dialogue is always this: in a really crappy, bad Power Ranger-esque acting. Look at me. See any tears?
Yeah, the acting in that show is not great. My final words for listeners are, keep checking out SpiderNerd.com. We got cool stuff coming up there. Keep listening to the podcast. Thanks to everyone who's listened. Just so you know, we don't have any iTunes reviews yet, so if you like the show, go ahead and leave us an iTunes review, or even if you don't like the show, leave us an iTunes review anyway. We'll take everything to heart, and, so I guess we'll see you guys next week.